Hello everyone. On today's flight, we're going to be flying the Bell 407 on a short flight down to New York City and then on to Newark, New Jersey. Apparently, we just got a phone call, and in that phone call, we've been asked to pick up a VIP at the New York heliport. So we're going to zip down there pretty quick. I'm kind of confused as to why the guy is calling us for a trip that takes about 3 minutes. You could always take the train for about 20 bucks or maybe catch a cab or something, but you know, these VIPs are VIPs, and apparently they can deal with my $1,000 fee. Anyway, so we're going to be flying the Bell 407. This is another helicopter available on the org. This is a heck of an upgrade from the Robinson Beta. It's much more powerful. It's a lot more twitchy. It can also carry quite a bit more, and there's a few more systems on it that we need to kind of keep an eye out. I've already pre-started this thing because it's a little tricky to start in X-Plane 11, but again, that's something to kind of keep in mind when you do go think about going and buying this. Anyway, so pretty straightforward helicopter. We have hydraulic assist controls. Everything else is pretty much the same. The governor on this is really solid. We're powered by a gas turbine as opposed to a piston engine like the Robinson is, so the response isn't quite as fast. It also means we have to keep a really close idea on our gas temperature here, because we don't want that getting too hot. It's about 726 is kind of our limit. Plus we have a torque limit, and then we also have a gas generator RPM limit. We're carrying just about 1,000 pounds of fuel right now, which is a lot. But at the same token, this is not really going to slow us down or anything like that. So anyway, we've gotten clearance from JFK Air Traffic Control to go ahead and get going, so we will. This particular helicopter, you're actually tilted up. It's kind of hard to see from where I'm sitting. But believe it or not, when you take off, the helicopter's going to have a tendency to kind of tumble forward. So to compensate, you can actually see the blade going by. To compensate for this, we like to do what we call the J. So we take our cyclic, which is right here, we pull it back, and then we go ahead and push it to the right, just like that, kind of putting it at this angle. That's usually enough to compensate for that tendency. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and gently increase our collective. At the same time as really start to apply some force on that left pedal. The helicopter's going to come up nice and easy. And we are now airborne. We're kind of wandering around a little bit. It's kind of New York, so all sorts of fun little gusty winds coming down from the ocean. One thing I have learned with helicopters like this is you really don't want to be playing with the collective too much. Kind of set it and forget it, and just kind of deal with the little oscillations that you get every once in a while. Okay, so this feels pretty good. Got myself in the world's worst little hover, but it's going to work perfectly fine for our cruise. So our destination is going to be to our east, so we're going to very gently go ahead and swing us around to the east. Make sure you catch this kind of early and try not to knock down too many of those little lights that I just did a second ago. That's looking pretty good. Go ahead and reestablish our gentle little hover there. And we're going to go ahead and use a standard takeoff, and we're going to use this nice little taxiway to my right to do so. Alright, go ahead and swing it this way. And all we're going to do is tilt the helicopter forward. You don't really need to increase collective very much, but what you do need to do is to start backing out your anti-torque. Once this helicopter gets up to its transitional speed, trying to concentrate here, the helicopter just kind of zips up on its own. Just like that. I'm sure we just violated every air traffic control law ever, but they'll forgive us. Anyway, we are on our way, and we are cruising on a very steady, almost 1,000 feet per minute climb. Keep in mind it's the summer, so again, we're dealing with that tricky density altitude. Alright, we're going to go ahead and take a gentle turn towards the east, or the west rather. If we're going east, we'd be going to Republic, which we're not going to today. We already dropped a client off there earlier this morning. Okie dokie, that looks pretty good to me. And now we're just going to go ahead and nose over a little bit and start building up a little speed. Cruise altitude is going to be right around 1,000 feet. Cruise speed is going to be about 130 if my calculations are correct, which I make mistakes all the time like everybody does. Probably not. So anyway, you get a fairly good feel for some of the features in X-Plane 11, such as this very gorgeously detailed JFK, which is pretty cool. Again, violating every law ever doing what I'm doing at the moment, but they'll deal. And you also get a feel for just the incredible density of the scenery in this particular area. It really does blow me away. For those of you who want to recreate this route with a little more realism, they actually have these things called helicopter routes that are basically based around different approaches into the city to keep us out of the way of the more high-speed traffic coming in and out of LaGuardia or JFK. Those routes actually follow major highways and major railways, and they're really cool if you've never seen anything quite like it. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead, now that I'm clear of the city, I'm going to go ahead and increase power just a teeny tiny bit. And we're going to get ourselves right up to 1,000 feet, and then we're going to nose over and really get this thing going. Because of the power this thing has, because we're flying so light today, we're not going to have to work too hard to keep this thing moving happily. Alright, I'm clear of the airport. I'm going to go ahead and take my gentle left turn here. And we're going to approach Manhattan directly. There's 1,000 feet. I'm going to push the nose over and reduce collective just a teeny tiny bit. Whoop, just a little too much there. Losing a few frames here and there, but given the incredible density of this scenery, it kind of doesn't surprise me. Okay, so as we're approaching and flying over this part of Long Island, you can just get a feel for just how many people are living in such a small kind of an area, and all the different shops and stores, and just, it's incredible. I personally live out in the countryside, so I don't see a lot of this every day. So it's always kind of neat to fly over, because most of my flights in the real world, as well as in the program, generally don't take place this close to a city. So there's our altitude. We're about 1,000 feet. It's a little tricky to keep this thing exactly at the altitude and speed you want. It just has so much power, and because we're not carrying anything heavy at the moment, you know, you're really going to be suffering in that regard trying to get this thing doing what you want it to do. Go just a little bit slower. Okay, that works. Okay, we got it. So anyway, there's basically 2 helipads on the east side of Manhattan, at least downtown, I should say. There's kind of like the north one, and then there's kind of like the south one. And obviously there's a few other on the top of buildings as well for people who have that kind of luxury at their disposal. But they're nice. They're pretty easy to get in and out of, and as long as the wind isn't too strong coming off the little bay there, it's usually a pretty pleasant flight in and a pretty pleasant flight out. Go ahead and swing our helicopter this way now that I'm very, very clear. And we're going to be heading for those big scary buildings off in the distance. There we go. Alright, so we're going to be aiming for the southernmost, rather, of the 2 heliports. And apparently our VIP is already waiting for us, which is funny because I'm 5 minutes early. So I guess that kind of thing just happens, but, you know, welcome to dealing with those kind of folks. So I know that the wind today is kind of coming out from behind me, so I'm actually going to swing out this way and then turn tight into it. If you look very, very carefully, kind of right over my right, you can actually start to make out roughly where that helipad is going to be. In the real world, of course, you could pick out each individual major building inside the city, and you could also see the Statue of Liberty from where I'm parked up here. But that's something we're just going to have to hope that we see a little bit into the future. Okay, now if you look really, really carefully, you can actually see my destination, which means it's time to start slowing this thing down. I gained a couple extra 100 feet there, but those buildings were making me a little nervous. So with this helicopter, all you do is got to back the collective out barely a centimeter, which is a little tricky when you have a noisy throttle like I do, but at the same time is it's pretty easy to control. We're going to aim for about 500 feet per minute. Again, since it's just us, we don't have to worry about passengers who are going, oh, as their stomachs get jammed up into their throats as we descend too quickly or too aggressively. But we'll deal with that problem in a minute. Alright, gonna go ahead and fly over these buildings. The helipad is in sight. I'm gonna get just a little bit lower and a little bit slower because we are coming in awfully fast. Helicopters like this take a really long time to slow down because they're just going so quickly and they just glide so easily through the air. I'm getting a pretty good amount of gusting winds, which checks out. You've got a lot of buildings and a lot of areas of asphalt creating that kind of nasty updrafts of heat, which make things much more exciting than they usually need to be. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and slow this thing down. There we go. Still coming down about 500 feet per minute. That's pretty good there. I'm going to try to get my speed down to about 60 or so if I can help it. Go ahead and swing this thing around. Got to be careful when you swing this around that you don't lift the nose up too much, because then you're just going to cause your rotor RPM alarm to go off as it suddenly dips out or it gets too high. Alright, there is our helipad right down below. Coming in a little too fast, kind of what I expected. Looks like somebody is already in our parking spot, jerk. So we're going to go have to use the other one today. Alright. Now we'll get ready to start playing with your feet like you've never played with them before. Remember, as you get slower, you're going to require more collective to maintain the same vertical speed. Otherwise, you start to accelerate, and then you enter into a vortex ring state, and then we crash, and that's not very pleasant. Yep, just like we expected, you can actually see gusting winds based on our little windsock there on the left, and it's kind of facing the direction I'm facing at the moment, which isn't too bad. Anyway, let's go ahead and swing this thing on down, and we're going to park right in that spot. Try to get our speed about 20 or so. And there's our client. He's invisible, but you know what I mean. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and lift the nose up just a little bit more. Ideally, we want to have this thing going 0 at the moment we get to the helipad itself. But that's very difficult to do, especially if you don't have a helicopter license or that much practice doing this. So you guys are going to just have to forgive me. Alright, go ahead and swing down. Yes, I see you waving. I'm almost there. Okie dokie. Now again, difficult to judge exactly how high off the ground we are, so we're going to do the best we can with what we have, kind of a thing. But that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and get the door for our client. Yes, hello. Yes, no, I'm on time. Yep, you'll be fine. Alright, we're going. Okay, let's grab the door for him after getting in the back seat completely. Now we're ready to roll. Okay, we're going to do a full power takeoff at this point because we don't really have a lot of room. So just like we did before, we're going to go ahead and put ourselves in little J position with a cyclic, a little bit to the left. Go ahead and pull forward. Give it a lot of collective and of course a lot of left foot. Tilt forward. Keep an eye on our total temperature. We actually just went into the yellow for a second there. I'm not happy with that. We're going to tilt forward. What's that? Oh, okay. So the client's asking us to take a quick pass over the city. We can't actually do this in the real world unless it's like an emergency or something like that. But again, he's paying me $1,000 for this, so too bad. I'm going to go ahead and take a gentle left turn here. I'm really, really going to hope that there's no angry buildings waiting for us in a second. Looks pretty good to me. Very nice. Okay, so now what we're going to do is kind of take ourselves and start heading towards Newark. Go ahead and back down on that anti-torque pedal. I'm working that a little bit too hard there. A little helipad on that roof, and I'm kind of tempted to try it out to see if it actually works, but I'm not going to get my hopes up too much. So Newark Airport is right ahead. That's in Newark, not New York. Go figure. And it should only take us about 3 minutes to get there. So again, 3 minutes for $1,000. I'll take it. The cool thing that you'd see in the real world here is you'd see the multitude of docks all around us, all the large ships coming in and out, and you'd also see everybody else. Was that a little helipad I just saw down there? It was! Cool. Yeah, I wouldn't want to land on that little thing, especially with the wind. Anyway, you'd see all the major ships getting loaded and unloaded, and it's just really, really, really cool to see if you've never had the opportunity to come down here yourself or fly down here yourself as well. Okay, so we're just going to keep heading in this direction, just like this. Speed's going really, really good. We're climbing just a teeny tiny bit. Again, I'm trying to get this thing up to about 1,000 feet. There's not really any mountains around here, so I don't have to go that high. Alright, it's about 1,000 feet. I'll go ahead and reduce my collective just a teeny tiny bit. Whoops, that was not a teeny tiny bit. And we're looking pretty good. Alright, Newark Airport is straight ahead on our kind of straight to our left. What's that? Oh, nope. Our client is requesting that we land directly next to the airplane, which, again, probably pretty illegal unless we are, a foreign dignitary or something crazy like that, but I'm not going to ask him any questions. He can deal with the feds. Of course, we couldn't usually do this in the real world because we'd be getting in the way of all the angry airplanes. The real world is quite a sight if you're flying and driving, rather, on Route 95. If you kind of look to the left, you could actually see like just rows of airplanes all making their approach into Newark at one time. It's pretty neat at night, and you can actually go online and find time-lapse photography of this, just watching each one of the lights kind of zip in and one after another. It's quite a sight, and I feel really bad for the air traffic controllers that I'm inconveniencing at the moment. Okay, there is our airport. Start slowing down just a teeny body bit. All we're trying to do is get that nice gentle 500 feet per minute going. It kind of takes a little bit of playing. Now that we have a client on board, we're just a little bit heavier than we were a second ago. Whoa, a little bit of gusty winds, but welcome to helicopter flying. You can't really avoid them. Oh, I see a pretty good sized train yard to my right. The name escapes me for a minute, but I actually think I know which one that is. But anyway, let's continue our approach. There's your traffic control tower. Go ahead and slow down just a little bit more. Again, you have to really, really plot your slowing down in advance with a helicopter this fast. Alright, I see a couple cargo planes on my right. Client says that it's going to be over to our left. So I'm going to go ahead and swing around, keeping in mind which way the wind is coming from. It's roughly behind us. So when we land, we want to try to land into the wind. The advantage to landing into the wind with a helicopter is you can put yourself in basically a fake hover where you're still going forward and having all the benefits of going forward without having to quite fight it just as hard as you would otherwise. One of the toughest places to hover, of course, is when the wind is directly to your right or directly to your left. The client says that it's a little tiny airplane on my left. which is great because I'm totally at the wrong angle to get to that. So we're just going to go ahead and take a quick little swing around the air traffic control tower as we descend. I'm going to continue to gently lower that collective. And though, actually, I think you're an observation tower. I don't think you're an air traffic control tower. You certainly could be, though. All right, we're going to take a very heavily loaded, you can actually hear the rotor getting very mad at me. But the reason we're doing this is we're trying to slow down as much as possible. This requires some pretty fancy footwork usually, and we are good. All right, there is our objective. Okie doke, just a little bit more collective. Come to my right a little bit, I can't see it very well from where I was, so we're going to come in kind of sideways. Back up just a little bit. There we go. Okay, he says he wants to be landed right behind it. Let's hope his engines aren't running, so his backblast destroys us. Okie dokie. Pretty much bring ourselves into a nice gentle hover. And then we play the where's the ground game. Go, just a little bit slower. Try to get him nice and close like he asked. Alright, that's pretty close if you ask me. Just a little bit less collective. Just gonna gently let this thing come down on its own. Down, a little rough, sorry, lose points for that. Go ahead and get the door. Make sure you put your hands up as high as you can when you go underneath that rotor blade. Alright, and we are good. Okay, so that's going to be the end of our video today. Hopefully you enjoyed and maybe saw something cool while you were coming through. If you ever wonder what happens if you pull the collective all the way back without doing any anti-torque pedal, let's find out.